Hi boys and girls, it's me again, Chris, for another edition of In the Living Room with MTC. I'll be reading from Alicia's favourite book again, and this time I think this may be my favourite story. It's called The Pot of Gold, an Irish folk tale. Niall O'Leary was sitting on a gate in the sunshine, daydreaming quite happily, when all of a sudden, tick, 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 he became aware of a sharp sound coming from the field behind him. Now what on earth can that be? Niall wondered to himself. It's too loud to be a grasshopper, and it's too quiet to be a bird. Tick, 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 it went again. Niall O'Leary swung his legs over the gate and turned around. He blinked in astonishment. There in the long grass of the field was the tiniest man Niall had ever seen, no higher than his boot. The tiny man had his back to Niall, but Niall could see that he was dressed all in green, with a long white feather in his cap. A tiny leather shoe lay before him on a rock, and he was banging away at it with a tiny stone hammer. Niall's eyes lit up. A leprechaun! A real, live leprechaun! Niall licked his lips greedily. Every tiny leprechaun had a huge pot of gold hidden somewhere, and as everybody knew, if you caught hold of a leprechaun and squeezed him tightly enough, he would have to tell you where his treasure was hidden. Quietly, Niall O'Leary got down from the gate. Tick, 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 went the leprechaun's hammer. Quietly, Niall O'Leary crept through the grass. Tick, 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 went the leprechaun's hammer. Quietly, Niall O'Leary reached out with his large, meaty hands. Gotcha! Cried Niall O'Leary, and he squeezed and squeezed the wriggling leprechaun with all his might. Oof! Cried the leprechaun. Let me go, you big bully! Tell me where your gold is and I will, boomed Niall. I can't tell you anything while you're squeezing the breath out of me, the leprechaun gasped, looking rather purple. Oops, sorry, blustered Niall, and relaxed his grip. Oh, that's better, whew, wheezed the leprechaun, taking gulps of air. Now put me down, and I promise I'll show you where my gold is hidden. A broad grin spread across Niall's face as he lowered the leprechaun back down on the grass. A leprechaun can't break his promise, he chuckled. No, grumbled the leprechaun rather crossly. And my gold is buried under here. He leapt a few steps into the middle of the field and pointed at a clump of dandelions. You'll need a spade, mind you, the leprechaun added thoughtfully. You'll have to dig quite a way down. Niall's face fell. But I haven't got a spade with me, he said gloomily. What shall I do? Why don't you tie your handkerchief around the dandelions so you don't forget where the gold is buried? The leprechaun suggested. Then hurry back home and fetch a spade. I promise, on my word of honour, that I won't untie the handkerchief. Niall's face brightened once again. What a great idea, he beamed. He fumbled in his pocket, brought out a rather grubby red silk handkerchief, and tied it around the clump of dandelions. There's the dandelion with the handkerchief. It waved at him in the breeze like a cheerful flag. "Thank you, Mr. Leprechaun," Niall remembered to say politely. "You've been mighty helpful." Then in a few strides, he was back over the gate and away home, humming merrily. As soon as Niall had grabbed the biggest spade he could find in the garden shed, he set off back to the field at once. All the way down the lane, he daydreamed of what he would do with the gold. But when Niall O'Leary reached the gate, he stopped, stone still, and his mouth hung open. He dropped the spade and scratched his head. "Well, blow me down," gasped Niall. All over the field, thousands of red silk handkerchiefs were tied onto clumps of dandelions and fluttering in the breeze. And Niall could hear the sound of leprechaun laughter floating over the grass on the wind. So Niall O'Leary never got his pot of gold after all. But that is how he came to own the most successful silk handkerchief shop in Ireland. There we go. It was a fun read. I hope you enjoyed it as well, and as much as me. And until next time, take care.